In this video, we'll give you 10 sneaky starts for Week 16 of the fantasy football season. I'm Jim Coventry with Anthony Cervino, and we are with RotoWire. Anthony, at quarterback, I'm looking Aaron Rodgers this week. In the last two games, fantasy points, 21 and 31. Don't watch the first half of his games. They're ugly. Somehow in second half, become Superman. It's been working. But even in the last four games, at least 17.9 fantasy points, and you'll take that. Now, they're playing the Rams. If the Rams, you never know what version you're going to see, but if they put up points, Rodgers could spend the whole second half passing. And Devontae Adams, the connection with Adams and Rodgers looks just like the good old Green Bay days, if not a little better in that second half last week. Now, the Rams also don't have the personnel to really deal with Adams and Garrett Wilson. So again, if they choose to throw, Aaron Rodgers could have a day. Anthony, who's your quarterback?
My quarterback's Cooper Rush, and Cooper Rush has been playing good enough football to where if you're in a bind in quarterback, if you're in a super flex league, you're in a bind. Cooper Rush, he gets Tampa Bay this week, and we know Rush in the past few games, he's had multiple touchdown passes, and 3 out of his past 4 games, he had 5 in his past 2 games total. And now you get Tampa Bay. And Tampa Bay, on paper, if you look at box scores, they look like their defense is improving. 2 of the past 3 games, they played the Raiders and the Giants. Every other quarterback they faced this season lit them up. And I think the same is going to be said about Cooper Rush. He has enough firepower around him to give you a high floor and possibly some ceiling, because this game could be a shootout.
At running back, I'm looking at Kendre Miller of the New Orleans Saints. Now, this is being recorded earlier in the week. There's a Monday night game for Kendre Miller, so we won't know Alvin Kamara's status from his groin abductor injury later. But even if Kamara plays, Kendre Miller has had 9 and 10 touches in the last 2 weeks. Week 14, 32 yards, not much, and a touchdown, though. And last week, 9 for 46. You would think if Green Bay, who's a 13.5-point favorite, gets out to a lead, Miller's going to see work, even if Kamara plays. But if Kamara doesn't play, it's even better. Now, I know Miller has seen very limited work, but in that limited work, 100 percentile broken tackle rate, 96 percentile of the yards after contact. Not sustainable, but it just shows us a little bit of a glimpse. We knew this was a good player coming into the season. His coach, Dennis Allen, had an issue with him. This guy can play. And against Green Bay, especially if they're trailing, there could be some free yards to be had. Kendre Miller could be a solid play for you. Anthony, who do you like at running back?
Running back, I'm going with Jerome Ford, the hot waiver wire pickup this week. He gets Cincinnati. But I think the bigger story here is the fact that Jameis Winston going to the bench in favor of Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Winston was passing nearly 40 times a game. They're not going to throw that much with Thompson-Robinson. This is going to be much more of a run-focused offense, similar to that Browns offense we saw last year. And Jerome Ford, we know, when given the opportunity, he's a very good fantasy asset. He has some sneaky RB2 production in him, especially if he's used in a passing game. And this matchup against Cincinnati, they've been gashed by enemy running backs all season long, including, I think Spears went for over 27 PPR points last week. I actually absolutely love Jerome Ford in Week 16.
If you enjoy videos like this, please consider hitting the like button and subscribe to the RotoWire Fantasy Football channel on YouTube. Also, you can check out all of our fantasy football content and rankings and every other sport as well. We got you covered everywhere. Free 2-day trial, no credit card needed. Go to rotowire.com/Jim. Check out all of our content. If you like it, sign up. If not, we're glad you stopped by and took a look. Wide receivers. My sneaky starter receiver is Calvin Austin of the Pittsburgh Steelers. George Pickens has missed the last 2 games with a hamstring injury. Short week. We'll see if he makes it back. I'm wondering if he's able to go. But Calvin Austin has at least 65 yards in 2 of the last 4 games. He's boom or bust. If you're in a situation in your fantasy game where you don't have a good flex option and you want to reach for the upside, remember, this time the Steelers played the Ravens. Low-scoring game last time. But the Ravens, if they come out and score some points, they're 6-point favorites in this. Russell Wilson may have to take some deep shots, and I'm not convinced the Ravens have solved all their problems on defending downfield passes. So I do think there's a boom or bust element, but you could use Calvin Austin if you're digging for some points. Anthony, who's your receiver?
At receiver, I'm going back to this Cowboys-Bucks game, and I'm going with Jalen McMillan. He is one of the hottest receivers in the NFL right now. Back-to-back games, over 18 PPR points, 3 touchdowns in the past 2, getting it done with targets, yards, receptions across the board. And he gets this Dallas defense this week. And this is what I'm loving about Jalen McMillan this week. Trevon Diggs, he's done for the year. He's getting surgery, which means they're left with Deron Bland. And Deron Bland, probably going to see Evans, but even if they go back and forth, there's going to be opportunities for Jalen McMillan. This Cowboys defense on the back end, they can be beat, and I believe they give up the fifth most production to perimeter wide receivers. So if you need a flex play at receiver, I think Jalen McMillan can keep it going this week.
Anthony Cervino is dissing his Dallas Cowboys. He's definitely selling something you should be buying. At tight end, I'm going to go to Brenton Strange of the Jacksonville Jaguars. I know in many leagues he was still on the waiver wire before last week. Not in my leagues he wasn't. Snapped him up right away. But remember, Brenton Strange now has played 5 games replacing Evan Ingram, 4 earlier in the season. In 4 of those 5 games, Strange has had at least 9.2 PPR points, so he has been a solid performer. Now, last week, a tougher matchup with the Jets. He goes 11 for 73. He also was held in the end zone on a play he could have scored a touchdown. Now, this week, it's a great matchup against the Raiders. The tight end in that Jacksonville offense is the second option. Mac Jones can get the ball to the middle of the field. Brenton Strange should be a PPR special this week. Anthony, how about your tight end?
Yeah, tight end, I'm going to Dalton Schultz. And Schultz used to be a startable tight end on a week-to-week basis. That's no longer the case. He's only had 1 game this year with double-digit PPR points. He's not getting a lot of opportunity, but I think that could change against Kansas City. Kansas City, they were a really good defense at one point, but they are taking steps back when it comes to their secondary. You can throw on them more. They were already bad against the tight end position. If they really try to focus on shutting down the wide receivers with Houston, this could be a nice spot for Dalton Schultz to produce.
My wild card play this week, and you got to have a stomach for this one, Ray Davis of the Buffalo Bills. Now, you'll use him if A, you're desperate for somebody. B, if you think the Bills have a chance of covering that 14-point line. Because if they do and they get out to a big lead, odds are Ray Davis will come in the second half and get a lot of work. Should that happen, we have seen Ray Davis with 2 games with double-digit touches. In those games, 18.2 PPR points and 13.7 PPR points. He's a very good running back against a very bad run defense. And again, if you project the Bills have a big lead and you need desperate help at running back or flex, Ray Davis could be your lottery ticket. Anthony, who is your wild card pick?
I am going with Craig Reynolds. We know the unfortunate news that David Montgomery's done. Jamar Gibbs, he's going to be the lead back, but I don't know if he's going to get everything. There's going to be short yardage opportunities for Craig Reynolds. We've seen Reynolds step up in the past for this Lions team, but similar to what you're thinking, a potential blowout for Ray Davis. Well, if there's a blowout, which can very well happen here with Detroit, Chicago, there's going to be garbage time production. We saw a little bit, I'll call it garbage time. Cam Akers got a touchdown. We saw Patrick Taylor score a touchdown in garbage time against that San Francisco Bears matchup. So I'm going with that same narrative. If Detroit blows this game open, and they should, I'm expecting potentially some garbage time run for Craig Reynolds.